Back in 2017, I relocated to a tiny, tucked-away town in rural Illinois, and the only person I knew within 100 miles was a friend of mine. Being naturally introverted, settling in was rough, making new friends felt impossible, especially being single, in my early 20s, and suddenly surrounded by a community made up almost entirely of retirees. My friend, let's call her Clara, introduced me to an older couple, probably mid-50s, who needed someone trustworthy to watch their dogs. She figured it would help me meet some locals and earn a little money that we arranged a day for me to come by their place, get familiar with their dogs, and have a look around. Their home was a 1970s brick ranch, dated, gloomy, with sagging corners and that neglected, stale smell old houses get when time forgets them. I'd spent years exploring abandoned buildings for fun, so nothing about it bothered me. The dogs were adorable, happy to meet me, but the couple? Something about them felt off. They were polite, but strange, never maintaining eye contact, always scanning me from head to toe like they were analyzing more than just my presence. Every room they led me into was shown without a single explanation: open door, stare, closed door. No conversation. And then, casually, they mentioned they sold firearms out of their home. I didn't mind guns, but realizing they had cameras everywhere, inside, outside, hallways, kitchen, living room, office, garage, backyard, driveway, even above the dining table, made my stomach twist. They insisted it was for insurance, but the sheer number of cameras felt excessive. Still, I needed the cash, and I desperately wanted some kind of connection in that lonely place. When the week finally came for me to dog sit, they'd already been gone for several days. I set up my workspace in their office, where a big monitor displayed the outdoor cameras. For a moment, I actually felt safer seeing all angles of the property. The house backed up to dense woods, and the dogs had a 24/7 doggy door, so at least I'd know what was outside. The first night was uneventful. But the second night, one of the driveway cameras suddenly went offline. Rural Wi-Fi is known to be temperamental, so I almost brushed it off. Still, I went to check, just in case it had fallen. Before I reached the door, the dogs shot to their feet and bolted through the doggy door, barking their lungs out. It was close to 10 p.m. and pitch black outside. When I reached the back door, they were both barking at the same spot along the fence where the yard met the woods. I saw nothing, but my mind was already conjuring every horror scenario possible. I eventually coaxed them inside with treats and shoved a heavy chair in front of the doggy door before calling it a night. When I woke up late the next morning, something felt off. The dogs weren't beside the bed. The house was eerily quiet. I called their names, nothing. When I reached the back door, I saw them already outside. That's when it hit me like a freight train. How did they get out when I blocked the doggy door? My stomach dropped. I turned to my right. The chair I had wedged against the doggy door the night before was now neatly placed in the corner of the room. My entire body turned cold. I immediately called Clara, panicked, begging her to come over and check the house with me. She arrived about 20 minutes later, and the moment she stepped inside, I practically dragged her through every room. Nothing. No one. It made no sense. She tried comforting me, suggesting maybe I hadn't pushed the chair tight enough. I didn't believe it, but I swallowed the explanation because I had to get through the next 4 days. Clara left, and I tried to resume work, though I was constantly on high alert. Hours later, as I finished dinner, I glanced at the camera monitor. Every single camera was offline. My stomach twisted. One camera failing was normal. All of them? No way. I texted the couple, explaining the cameras were down and asking if they wanted me to troubleshoot anything. No response. That silence made the house feel even bigger. Close to midnight, I finally settled into bed with the TV on to fill the oppressive silence. Suddenly, the dogs leapt up and sprinted toward the doggy door again. My heart hammered. Something was out there. I grabbed the knife I kept next to the bed and crept toward the back door. The yard looked empty, and the dogs had already calmed and were simply sniffing along the fence again. I yelled for them to come in, when out of nowhere, a heavy thump sounded from the opposite end of the house. I froze. I got the dogs inside, blocked the doggy door with the chair again, this time taking a picture to prove to myself I'd done it, and moved toward the room where the noise came from. The moment I stepped near the doorway, the air changed. The silence had a heaviness in it, like something invisible was breathing just enough to disturb the atmosphere. Anyone who has ever felt another presence in a room knows that sensation. And I felt it, deeply, that I whispered, "Who's there? What are you doing in here?" Silenced that I even called out the couple's names in case they had returned unexpectedly. Again, nothing that I didn't want to call Clara again, she had a family. The police felt like an overreaction. So I quietly closed the door, locked it, and sat in the living room gripping my phone and the knife, trying to calm my shaking hands. 20 minutes crawled by. Then my phone buzzed. A text from the wife, "Hi. Don't worry about the cameras. You're safe." It was 2 a.m. in Florida. Why were they awake? And why mention safety when I hadn't? Before I could respond, another text came in. "Also, can you make sure I didn't leave the garage door to the inside open? I don't want anything getting in." That door was in the same room as the thump. That I didn't reply. I pretended to be asleep. 2 minutes later, "Hi, I know it's late. Can you please check? I'm worried." My instincts screamed don't. But another text came immediately after, "I see you're up. Can you please go in and check?" I froze. They had hallway cameras. Living room cameras. They could see me. They knew I hadn't gone to sleep. Terrified and shaking, I slowly unlocked the door and pushed it open as far as I could while keeping my distance. The room looked empty. No sound. No movement. I stepped inside, heart in my throat. The garage door was indeed cracked open, leading into total darkness. Just as I got close, my phone lit with a notification, and the faint glow illuminated the edge of the doorway, just enough to reveal the silhouette of an arm pressed flat against the wall, inches from where I was about to step. That I spun around and sprinted out, slamming the door and locking it. I grabbed my keys, ran to the front door, fumbled with the lock, and just as I opened it, I heard the garage door rumbling open. That I dove into my car, started it, and when my headlights lit the open garage, I saw him, a grown man in a dark jacket, crouched behind a stack of boxes, staring directly toward the door I had nearly closed. That I didn't hesitate. I reversed down the driveway and sped straight to the police station. They inspected the house and found nothing. No signs of forced entry, nothing unusual, except the garage door was open. They escorted me back and checked again. Everything looked normal, but I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch gripping the knife, wide awake. 20 minutes after the officer left, the wife texted, "Hi, plans changed. We'll be home soon. You can go home now." No acknowledgement of my messages, my panic, nothing. That I left immediately. Halfway down the road, I checked my rearview mirror just in time to see a car with no headlights pull into their driveway. I texted the wife, "Someone just pulled into your driveway." Instantly, she responded, "I know." Ice shot through my spine. They had been there the whole time. The dogs hadn't been barking at wildlife, they'd been alerting me to movement. The couple had been shutting off the cameras intentionally so I wouldn't see them creeping around their own property while I was alone inside their house. That I never heard from them again. Clara apologized repeatedly, saying she had barely known them aside from seeing them at the local diner, though she also mentioned they never came back after that night. That I'm 30 now, and the memory still sits in my chest like a stone. I survived, but knowing I came within seconds of something unspeakable is a feeling that never truly leaves.